Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Jeff Turner, my star brother, I love you so much. Thank you for taking 2 hours tonight. This is normally the time when we do our show, Soul School.
Mhm.
And tonight is really a coupling of the two shows. I thought that it was better to put it under the Hetero World Awakening, but this is Soul School as well. And class is in session, but then again, class is always in session. It's up to us to learn the hard lessons. And unfortunately, as we both know all too well, the test always precedes the lesson
Mhm.
in Soul School. And humanity is in the midst of what I think, rightfully describe as our final exam. If we don't pass this, there's not going to be another class. There's not going to be any more lessons. There's not going to be um, a future for humanity on this fragile planet. Um, there are people that we know that if they heard us talking like this would probably go, oh, climate changers. Well, yeah, every one of us on this planet is a climate changer. And anybody who is a climate denier is, number one, completely and utterly uneducated or suffering from willful ignorance or has a lot of stock in Exxon or just simply chooses not to see the handwriting on the wall. I spent the whole day thinking about this subject tonight, our fragile planet, thinking about what little we can do with our little show that hopefully goes far and wide and that people will listen to. But I need to tell you, Jeff, it's been a frustration for me in a lot of ways because I have been talking about this subject since I was 10 years old, and I'm 65. And now, just recently, people are starting to hold symposiums and all the talking heads get together and they say, oh, yeah, we're kind of in trouble. Yeah, we kind of are in trouble. 5 or 6 hours ago, a ballistic missile from the Houthi rebels that was given to them by Iran to do as much damage as they could possibly do in the Red Sea, hit an oil tanker, full oil tanker from the UK. And the entire crew has abandoned ship. There are ships racing to get there as fast as they can to mitigate the damage. But 5 hours ago began another monumental, massive environmental disaster on this planet 5 hours ago.
Hmm.
I haven't even mentioned, missiles being shot at Zaporizhia, the largest nuclear power plant in Western Europe that's located in Ukraine. I told you about that, just rocking and praying all night one night. Please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, don't hit the reactors. Now, but it's still in jeopardy. It's absolutely in jeopardy. Just because it's not on the news every night doesn't mean that it's not in jeopardy. I'm sure you are aware, as I was aware, of Chernobyl, when the Soviet Union decided not to tell anyone that they'd had the world's largest nuclear disaster. And it wasn't until a week or more later that all of the cow milk in Sweden was coming back radioactive that we knew that there had been a disaster in Russia. Um, and I happen to know a woman who is a good friend of my sister Christine, who was there when it happened, and she saw the mushroom cloud,
Hmm.
and she ran, and she had little babies. She had her little children, her toddler and her infant, and she ran and she hid inside the overhang of a building as the radioactive cloud passed over her.
Hmm.
Most of her family is dead.
Hmm.
They all died from radiation poisoning over the years. Some lived longer than others. Her children have massive birth defects, and their children have
Hmm.
birth defects. And that's from one person that I know that was in the direct path of a nuclear cloud. Many millions of people around the country this past year watched a brilliant film called Oppenheimer.
Hmm.
As difficult as it is to watch, I think it's imperative that everyone see it. I don't understand why it isn't being shown in every history class in America. Maybe someday it will be. But it's got some sex in it. So that's
Yeah.
reason enough to not let the children learn anything about this,
Yeah.
or the naked people in the Holocaust.
Hmm.
Let's not show them any images of that like it never even happened.
Right. Never mind the fact that literally everything at their fingertips is saturated in sex. It's just that it
Yeah,
it serves to degrade them, not to educate them. So
right.
that's
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah, and that's okay,
Mhm.
because smartphones,
Yeah. Yeah.
ask uh ask Taylor Swift how okay AI is
Hmm.
today. Um, all right, so let me give you just a little tiny bit of background before we launch into this. When I was 10 years old, we were still living in Cumberland, Rhode Island, before we had bought the farm, before we even knew about the farm, actually. And my mother was taking college courses at Rhode Island College in Providence. And she came home with a textbook uh, that I was fascinated by. And it was written by Paul and Anne Ehrlich, both doctors, both have doctorates, um, called Population, Resources, and Environment. It's also his most famous work is The Population Bomb. They wrote all their work together. He's in his 90s now. Uh, the gas and oil industry did everything in their power to discredit him, to much like what the American Medical Association did when the cure for cancer was found by a German doctor in the 20s. They had just been founded, and they burned all of his paperwork and threw him in jail, and that's where he died. I'm having a senior moment with his name, but it'll come to me, and sometime during the middle of the show, I'll say, "Oh yeah, him." Um, but I read the book as a 10-year-old from cover to cover. It took what 4.5 decades before I had any platform, before I had any notoriety, before I had any place that I could talk about this. And I had to create my own show to do it, because for the last 12 or 13 years, since I've had that kind of exposure, um, I was the ghost lady. Talk about the ghosts. Let's talk about ghosts,
Mhm.
hauntings and ghosts and hauntings and ghosts. And that's great. I know I love talking about the spirits at the farm and my own experiences since then and all of that. But um, I'm not a black and white person.
Mhm.
I'm like Disney on mescaline. I am that colorful a character. And I know a lot about a lot of things. And we need to have this conversation. And I'm sure there are people that are, are going to be like, oh, I thought we were going to talk about ETs and spirit. And so, well, guess what? We are. Because if everything is one thing, if everything is consciousness, if everything is energy, if everything is one thing, then as we get to a point of spiritual ascension where we understand and start to comprehend the realization of oneness, then this whole entire planet is in crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted your spiritual perspective. We're going to bring Rupert in a little later, who is our scientist in residence, even though he has as much to say about the spiritual and the cosmic aspects of this as either of us do. But before we launch in and before I turn this over to you, I just want to bring a couple of things to the attention of people in my notepad. I have notes, and more notes. Humanity has been using fossil fuels as energy for a little over 150 years. What is that but the flutter of an eyelash of time?
Mm-hmm.
In that amount of time, we have damaged this planet, I would say, beyond redemption. Just this week, we were informed that we're drinking 150 million parts per gallon of plastic
as I take a drink,
in our water, in bottled water.
Mm.
Bottled water is no longer allowed in this house.
Mm.
Why? We learned something and then we made a change.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, I suspected it all along. I use everything out of the Brita water filter. I only drink well water or out of the Brita filter, which again is plastic, but I don't think it's the same kind. It's not recycled plastic that's been broken down and it's all bad. I mean, let's face it, it's all bad. I was having a conversation once with Tenny about this, and one of his scientist friends that works at, I believe the CERN at the Large Hadron Collider in Satigny, Switzerland, had said to him one time, I think I've got this right. He'll straighten me out if I don't, but I'm pretty sure I have this right. And said that if you backed an oil tanker up to your backyard and emptied it in your backyard, crude oil, and emptied it into your backyard, you would do less environmental damage than having one child. One child. That's the carbon footprint of one more being on the planet when we have 8.3 billion now, I do believe. The Industrial Revolution, which basically built America, literally changed the what we know as Great Britain or the UK, the islands, the British Isles. The British Isles used to be known as the Golden Isles, and it was warm and it was balmy and it was bright sunshine most of the time, and it was an extremely desirable environment to live in until about the mid 1800s. In the United States, when we began pouring so many pollutants into the atmosphere, not just into our water sources, but literally into the atmosphere, that it changed the environment of what we now know as the UK. We can talk to Rupert when he comes on about that. I would recommend people read The Population Bomb by Paul and Anne Ehrlich. And I would be happy to give anybody a reading list of a number of scientific journals, but also some real spiritual work that's being done around this. And yes, am I afraid it's too little too late? Yes, I am. But even if it's a scintilla of hope, we have to hang on to hope because that's all we've got. And now we do have electric vehicles. Now we do have solar and wind, and their detractors, mostly people that have all of their money tied up in fossil fuels. The damage that will be done just to the Red Sea tonight, just that, with an oil tanker, a full oil tanker that is burning in the middle of the Red Sea, and its cargo being emptied to the bottom, will kill millions of creatures who will die in agony if they didn't blow up in the original explosion. Fukushima Daiichi, the Japanese have told the IAEA that they're going to pour metric tons of water that was claimed out of the 4 nuclear reactors that were hit in 2011 by the tsunami, because it was so wise to build a nuclear power plant on the shoreline of one of the most active regions for earthquakes and tsunamis on the entire fucking planet. And now they're pouring all of that, including cesium, into the Pacific Ocean as though it's their ocean. Well, I got news for them. Somebody needs to get a globe and spin it in front of them and say, guess what? The Pacific Ocean is the Atlantic Ocean, is the Arctic Ocean, is the Mediterranean Sea, is the Caribbean, is the Gulf of Mexico. All of it is one body of water. And when confronted with that, basically what they have to say about that is, well, then it'll get diluted. There is a clump of garbage floating in the Pacific Ocean from the wash off of that particular tsunami that devastated the coast of Japan. That is so large that animals have taken up residence on it. Sea animals have taken up residence on it, and it's radioactive. There are over 5,000 nuclear detonations that have happened on this planet since the invention or the discovery of the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb. And I could go on. I could fill this hour with really bad news for the planet. But I think that we need to look up. We need to look up and know that, we're reaching someone with this. We're reaching someone with this show. We're reaching someone with this information. And this is a class that belongs in Soul School, and we are being tested. And this is the final exam. So what do you think about all of this, Jeff? I mean, we talked briefly, but I didn't even want to pick your brain. I just wanted you to just go for it.
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking about it throughout the day, and I won't pretend for a moment to be incredibly well educated on this particular subject. Not that it's not an area of concern. Obviously it is. It's just one of those things I know to be true, and I'm about as educated as your typical layperson is. But I won't pretend to be an expert in this field in any way, shape, or form. However, I am deeply invested in the symbol of the coming of an end of some kind. And it's been evident to me for some time now that we are coming to the end of something, right? And
Yeah.
it's difficult for me, and I have to say that as well. It's difficult
Well,
for
you have
me.
children. Of
Yeah.
course, it's difficult.
Yeah. Well, and it's also difficult thinking in these terms and avoiding certain falling into certain patterns simply because um I don't come from a radical sect of Christianity, but I was my own radical sect of Christian. And I had pretty radical views about the end times and the second coming of Christ and the end of days and all of this. And I lived for a season of my life in perpetual fear of the end of the world. And if you understand that in this sort of very young, 150-ish year old version of Christian apocalypticism, um, I was always believing there was going to be this rapture, if you understand what that
Yeah.
terminology. And then there was going to be this devastations visited upon the earth for 7 years while an antichrist ruled. And so we always had our minds fixed on this kind of doom and gloom scenario. And it was really liberating to understand from scripture itself, coming from that paradigm, that, well, it doesn't actually say quite that, the narrative, the neatly packaged narrative we had of what the end times were going to look like. It was quite a relief when you lived with that debilitating fear all of your life. Like, I grew up in an environment where, and this isn't because this was really pushed on me, it's just the way my brain processed the stuff that was just kind of in the air in the environment I grew up in. Not that it was taught to me this way specifically, but this is the way I processed it. Where if I couldn't find my parents, or if my mom was late coming home from work or coming home from the store, I was convinced she was raptured. Jesus came back and took her, and I was left behind. And now I was going to have to face 7 years of tribulation and the reign and the rule of the Antichrist all by myself. And I had all these plans worked out in my 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old brain of what I would do and how I would survive. So coming out of that, one of the reasons that when I say it's difficult for me, it's because it's very easy for me to slip right back into that mode of thinking. You know what I mean? So like I try to be very positive with myself as it concerns the future. However, you can't be naive about things either, right? And so one of the reasons that I resisted looking at some of this stuff early on in my own spiritual journey and deconstruction of some of these ideas was simply because it took me right back to that emotion. You know what I mean? And so
abandonment. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had
Terror.
to exactly. So I had to avoid it for a season. But the difference is this is based in reality. This is based in science. This isn't an apocalyptic tale from an ancient text. This is something real that's happening, right? But to me, there's a lot going, because we're talking about the spiritual side of it right now. It signifies to us that we're coming to the end of something. We're coming to the end of something. And you even brought up Oppenheimer, the movie Oppenheimer. And, the last 3 Michigan UFO contacts that I've attended, and I didn't attend the last one, that was my message. That my entire message was about the detonation of that, and how what emerged from that in the weeks after the detonation of that device at the Trinity field was it was an event that kicked off the modern UFO phenomenon, and so there was always a symbol in that to me of the fact that at the Trinity site, which is what that was named because Oppenheimer himself had been reading the poetry of the mystical poet John Donne.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, there was in his mind a poem called Batter My Heart, Three-Personed God. Batter My Heart, Three-Personed God is a poem that basically is someone crying out to the divine saying, I'm so hard of hearing. I'm so blind to reality. I am so prone to return to my old ways after being corrected and after falling on my face. Please, God, this whatever he's crying out to, do something radical that keeps me and prevents me from going back. And so that is what was in his mind when he names it the Trinity site, for no other reason. He just says, I'm not even exactly sure why. I just know that was in my mind. And actually, I don't even think he references that. He just references that he had been reading the poetry of John Donne. We know that's one of his poems. We know that's where the Trinity imagery comes from.
Right.
And so there is bubbling up from the unconscious a message, a story that is then going to play itself out. So we detonate this device, which is the splitting of an atom, which represents the core of reality itself, the deepest truth of being, which is unity and wholeness. And that's in Orthodox Christianity, that's what the image of the Trinity means. And I know I've said this, but I just don't care how many times I've got to repeat myself. I'll repeat myself until I have no voice left with which to repeat anything, because this to me
is how people learn.
Exactly. This to me is the most important message that I ever give. And even if one is not even if the Trinity imagery means nothing to anyone, that's totally fine with me. But this is a story that is erupting from the little suburb of the collective unconscious that is in the Western world. And so our imagery, our collective mythology, is what is being played upon to tell us the story. So Trinity, Orthodox Christianity, Trinity means wholeness. It represents three distinct entities that are in such union with one another that they are spoken of as though they are one.
One.
Right? They're one thing. And I often use the illustration of it's like the blades of a fan that are spinning so quickly that you look up at them and it looks like a flat circle instead of 3 or 4 separate blades spinning. And there is a movement that occurs within the relationship of the Trinity that is this movement of other-centered, self-giving love. The Father gives to the Son receives from the Father, and then the Son gives to the Spirit, and the Spirit receives from the Son, and then the Spirit gives to the Father and receives. And then in the New Testament, that triangle is open, and it pours out on all of humanity, and all of humanity is included in that, and we are able to kind of complete that circle. But Trinity is an illustration for oneness, singularity, and wholeness. And it just emerges from his mind that we're going to call this site the Trinity site. There we split the atom, the core of reality, this unity. We split it apart, and in the splitting of it, we become capable of destruction on a scale that no one has ever seen before, right? And it's weeks after this that the event, and Jacques Vallée has a book called Trinity, the Hidden Key, which documents all of this. The event that kicks off the modern UFO movement, let's call it that, occurs. And so what happens? We split the atom. We split apart the core of reality, which is Trinity symbolically. Also, by the way, Trinity, the ancient way of speaking of Trinity is the word perichoresis, which means to move in a circle. It means to dance and to move in a circle. So it's oneness and wholeness. It's three things that are in such unity, they appear as one. We split that apart. We see what happens. We see what the inverse of that unity is. And it's destruction on a scale that's unimaginable and unspeakable. And then from that emerges, I think, the answer to the prayer that is embedded in the name of the site, Trinity, that comes from the poetry of John Donne, Batter My Heart, Three-Person God. That prayer is answered. And here's the battering of your heart. Here's the sign that you can't ignore. Here's the thing that is meant to keep you from going back to what you always go back to. This symbolically. Again, it changes shape, it changes images over time, but the most universal and enduring picture of the quote-unquote, flying saucer we have is that of a flat disc. I know it appears in many other forms, but if you say the word UFO, that's what people think of. It's a circle. So what emerges, we split the circle of unity apart. What emerges from it? This circle that will then float through and haunt the collective conscious of humanity for the next 60, 70 years, right? And it's still doing it to this day, and it's only ramping up and it's only amping up. And this year, the movie Oppenheimer comes out. It was released, I believe, 7/14. Oh, I can't remember the exact date, but it was a series of sevens is when it was released. And that was at a time when we were getting that number a lot as well. And I remember it being like, okay, this is important. This is being emphasized. Okay. And I think that's the call. Okay. So anyways, I know that's kind of an esoteric approach to it, but here's what I believe is happening. Here's what I believe the call is. The call is the return to that circle of unity. And what is that circle of unity? Like, how can we practically apply all of that esoteric mumbo jumbo I just spit out? Well, it's the union of masculine and feminine principles, which we're not good at that. We're good at going from one extreme to the other, right? We either become fully possessed by and embody one or the other, but we're very bad at the balance, right? So obviously with everything that's going on in Israel and everything right now, we see the Star of David a lot. Okay, that's on the Israeli flag. That star, that image, that hexagram, it's present in a lot of different religions. It appears in Hinduism, but it's a symbol of Judaism because of the Kabbalists, specifically in the Middle Ages, who took that symbol and used it to symbolize certain principles in Judaism. And if you look at it, it's two triangles, one facing upward, one is inverted, and they are combined. And so you have an upward facing triangle and a downward facing triangle. You have 7 gaps, which are the 7 spheroids, the Tiferet, all that, whatever. The tree of life, the spirit of the tree of life, those same are represented by those 7 gaps in the star. And then there's 6 points to it. Okay. Well, the upward facing triangle, that represents the masculine principle in mythology and religion. The downward facing triangle represents the feminine principle. Now, it's important to say that doesn't have anything to do with like sex. When you're talking about, and I know you know this, but when you're talking about masculine and feminine principles in religion and symbology and mythology, we're not talking about physical gender.
No.
We're talking about principles that have to come together for there to be balance. And a man can embody the feminine principle, a woman can embody the masculine principle. It's not really about that. So the upward facing triangle, though, that represents the masculine. Of course, it's phallic in nature. It's pointing upwards. It's referred to as the blade. Then you have the downward facing triangle, which is also anatomical imagery, which is the chalice. And it's the coming together of the male and female principles. Now, the thing to notice about them is that the male principle points upward, right? The masculine principle, I'm sorry, I just said it's not about sex and I called it the male principle, but the masculine points upwards, whereas the feminine points downwards. Now, the masculine is an air sign, the feminine is an earth sign. And you can see that in the way religions actually manifest these principles as well. That earth-based religions, where there is a goddess involved, are typically, they're more feminine-based religions. They embody the feminine principle, whereas the more patriarchal religions, and I don't say that as a pejorative, but those that are more based on patriarchal structure, they are upward pointing. And there's always, so it goes like this. There's always something that's up there that they're aiming at. There's always a principle that's up there that they're aiming at and they're going for, and they often aim at it and go for it whilst neglecting what's down here.
Mother Gaia.
Yes. So
Yes.
it's facing away from the earth, whereas the feminine principle faces towards the earth. Now, if you take either one of those and you separate them, you're
Chaos.
screwed. You're screwed. Yeah. Either one of those on their own will screw you. And I think because we've mostly just seen the masculine principle out of control, we think like that's the one, but either one can cause complete chaos if they're not joined. Like it's just, if we don't understand that, we just don't understand symbology and what our answers.
Right. And it feeds, directly into, the truth of our existence on this plane of action is duality. It is. I mean, we live in duality. We have, the darkness and the light and the good and the evil and the up and the down. And we have failed to merge the two in the same way that we have thus far failed to merge science with spirituality.
Exactly. Yeah, we call them non-overlapping magisterium, a la Stephen Jay Gould.
Right.
But if you don't bring them together, you're effed. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. But one thing I wanted to mention though, when you were talking about the Star of David and the Israelites, I remember we did a show where I was very emotional. And I remember on February 24th of 2021, when I got singularly the most profound message that I had ever received from our galactic family. And I knew I had just gone back to Florida after having spent the holidays here in Georgia with my mom and my sisters. And I was just rocking on the terrace, and I felt it coming. I felt it coming. I knew it was coming. And I was speaking aloud to the galactic family. Usually I just, I do actually talk to them a lot, an awful lot, usually out loud, because everybody in my family expects it. I don't have to hide anything. But I was upset, and I was, you need to get down here. You need to get down here now, because we are so screwed. And I just feel like something terrible is coming. And I know what it is, and you know what it is. And if there was ever a time to intervene in the affairs of humanity, this would be the time.
Yeah.
And, I was holding my coffee and rocking in my chair and praying and speaking with them. And there were sparkling lights in the sky, which I see all the time anyway. That's not news. But, all of a sudden I just stopped, and I got very still, and I heard through my ears, through my third eye, throughout my entire conscious self, the most important message I had ever received. And that was this: if we are here, this planet and its people are in crisis. We are here. And at the end of the first year, when Volodymyr Zelensky marked the first year anniversary of the war in Ukraine, that's the 3 words he chose to end his speech to the world with. We are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they are here. And those 3 words meant that we are they, and they are we, and all are one. They can't stop the cruise missiles. They can't. They could, but they can't save us from ourselves, or we will surely perish.
Yeah.
And if we don't save ourselves from ourselves, we will surely perish. But one of the things spiritually that I have lived my whole life with a keen sense of, and I'm a Libra, I'm an air sign, but I am also grounded. I love this planet. I hate what's going on the planet. Hate it. Like, to the extent that I don't ever want to come back here. I don't. Send me anywhere in the universe, but not here. Because no matter how beautiful, how stunning, how resplendent with life this planet is, we are the pestilence. We, humanity, are the pestilence on the planet. And I did an interview last year when the movie I was involved with, We Are Not Alone, was released. And The Sun, which is based in the UK, very nice gentleman called me and got my producer on the other end of the phone, and we had a 3-way conversation. And at one point, he asked her if, she's just a movie maker, or does she really believe in extraterrestrials? And she said she did, but she didn't think that they had any interest in us at all. At which point, I had to beg to differ, which I did so in a respectful but forthright manner. And what I said was, "Oh, my darling, you are so wrong. They love us. They adore us. They want us to survive and to thrive, because, using whether you're using inductive or deductive logic, inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning, or whether you're, just looking at her responses completely counterintuitive, which is the way I interpreted it, was it is obvious that we are the problem on the planet. It's not the water buffaloes that are causing the problem. It's not the snakes hanging from trees. It's not the apples growing from the trees. It's not nature. What we're doing to nature is unnatural. We are living in conflict with nature, in mortal conflict, and we will lose. This planet will go on, and I said to her, if our galactic family loves this planet so much and sends us numerous messages about the disastrous harm we're doing, polluting our environment and destroying our trees and, killing off our wildlife and, et cetera. I mean, God, a list as long as your arm in the tiniest font you could print of what we're doing wrong, then logically they would wipe the offending organic entity off the planet so that Earth would survive unimpeded by our destructive nature. And she had no choice but to accept my argument. And I know of what I speak. Yeah. And I know that we are loved, but they cannot save us from ourselves. There's no spaceship that's going to drop above the Red Sea tonight and offload the crude oil from that tanker. It is instead going to be, and I'm sure already is, a complete, total environmental disaster, just like what happened in the Gulf, just like what happened in Prince William Sound in Alaska, and on and on and on and on. And I think it begs the question, what have we learned? What has humanity learned in terms of our own self-worth or feelings of self-preservation of the one human race? And I think that, sad to say, nothing. Not really. Not enough. Not enough people have been educated enough to, and people think, well, I'm doing my part, I've got a recycling bin and, well, do you know about 75% of what you throw in your recycling bin, they can't handle at the recycling center because they don't have enough space and they don't have the equipment. And guess what? It's going into a landfill. It is going into a landfill. There are people on Wall Street right now who are investing in landfill operations because at some point in the future, if we survive, those landfills are going to be dug up. And what can at that point be extracted and reutilized will happen sometime in the future. So it's a good long-term investment. It's not solving any of the issues or any of the problems.
Yeah.
Wilhelm Reich had the fucking cure for cancer in 1923. And the American Medical Association burned all of his research and threw him in jail. Told you I'd come up with the name. Told you.
That's it.
So anyway, so continue on. And then, I want to bring our mutual friend Rupert Guy in, who is a space scientist, but is, also incredibly well-read and, a scholar, much like yourself, who I think will add a great contribution to the discourse tonight.
Absolutely. And, no, I agree with everything you're saying. And what I was trying to communicate before with the Star of David imagery and all of that is just, pardon me, we often err on one extreme or the other.
Mhm.
It's the curse of humanity. We're always either all masculine or all feminine. Again, only speaking in terms of archetypes and symbols, not literal gender or sex. We're always either the upward facing masculine principle that is willing to abandon what's below in pursuit of what's up here, whether that's some higher principle, whether that is decomposed down to the most simple level of a husband who's willing to, work his ass off while his family goes to hell and he's never home. You know what I mean? That's the highest principle, is that, well, we're gonna fly to outer space and say screw this planet, and then if you decompose it down to like what you would experience on an everyday scale, it would be something like that. It would be spending all of your time aiming at this higher principle while the things that are supposed to be under your care rot. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Or you forgot to plant the garden.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so we're always either that, or we're so focused on what's in front of us that we never aim at a higher principle.
Mhm.
Right. And so it's always, but that's why in the middle of that star, there's this larger shape that is the Malkuth. This is where birth happens. If I was to take a Christian analogy, I would say that would be where the principle of the Christ manifests.
Mhm.
And this is why I adore mystical Christian imagery so much, even though I've tried so hard to run away from it. It won't let me go. I love it because I think it's the story that, my opinion, biased, of course, but in my opinion, a mystical interpretation of Christianity explains reality. I mean, it's all there, and that's half because it's very old and people have been teasing these ideas out for millennia. But in that middle point, the meeting of the upward and the downward, you have the Christ principle. And the Christ principle manifests itself in the human life of Jesus the Christ, Yeshua the Christ, and the teaching that develops about him is this thing called hypostatic union, which says that in the person of Jesus, humanity and divinity, two opposing principles, things that not really, but things that to our mind don't fit together. It's either one or the other,
Right.
dwell in perfect harmony. And they don't dwell 50-50. The doctrine of hypostatic union is that fully God, fully man, neither is depleted or contradicted by the presence of the other. And that occurs in the meeting of these two. That's where the Christ principle manifests. And that's what we have to become. That is what we have to become. We can't be the, there was a great Disney movie that came out a few years ago that I don't think got near the attention it should have gotten, called Tomorrowland or Tomorrow World.
Oh, what a fantastic film.
It was phenomenal. And
phenomenal. All of life lessons wrapped into 2 hours of brilliance.
It was all there, and it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And one of the underlying principles in that was that there was a time in human history where we were always thinking forward. We were always looking only for the future, like maybe the movies that my parents grew up watching, that when they dealt with the future was always, it was the Jetsons. It was everything.
Yeah, George
was
Jetson was a liar. I do not have a hovercraft out in my side yard.
Yes,
and not there. I was told we would have them by now, that they would burn no gasoline, that they would, spontaneously. I mean, we grew up thinking that's where we were going, where we would do the least amount of damage, where we could be off planet whenever we wanted to be. The Jetsons really messed with my psyche.
Yeah.
Really did.
And instead we're heading more back toward the Flintstones at this point.
Yeah, much more towards the Flintstones.
But that was sort of the vision that was set before a generation of that. This is what the future can be. This is the vision of the future. And then we reached a point in history where there was this drastic shift that happened, where anything concerning the future, any movies, any cartoons, any video games, anything concerning the future, it was all apocalypse. It was all, everything had gone to hell. Everyone's been infected by a virus and now they're all zombies. Everyone's the Terminator. It's, the world's gone to hell. AI took over. So there was this vision that was set before a generation, and now there's this vision that's set before a generation. We become what we behold. We do. I believe that's William Blakeism, that we do become what we behold.
Yeah.
What we think on, what we meditate on, we will manifest.
Mm-hmm.
We will, read Psycho-Cybernetics. You can get plastic surgery, but if you don't believe your appearance changed, you will be drawn towards the same type of behaviors that you had before you had it, when you thought you looked a certain way. That's what Maxwell Maltz's whole book is, Psycho-Cybernetics, is based upon.
And read the spiritual writing of William Butler Yeats too, and Anka, and I mean even Einstein. I mean we spent the whole show last week on Einstein.
Yeah.
And the notion of love, and I really do believe, Jeff, that love is the answer. That love will unfold in such a way that it will be our ultimate salvation.
I do too.
But I don't know if I will live long enough to see it.
Have you ever seen the movie Interstellar, Andrea?
Yes, I did, and I still have nightmares, especially about the wave. Coming in, the wave.
And the whole time dilation sequence. Oh man, I watched that last year, and as a father whose children are much older now than they were the first time I watched it, I don't think I ever bawled as hard in a movie as I did when I watched that particular sequence. But what I love about that movie is you have the appearance of what they believe are extraterrestrials that open a wormhole in order for us to be able to save ourselves.
Right. Go populate someplace else.
Yeah. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, I'll give you 3 seconds to change the channel. At the end of the movie, what we find out is that they were us. It was us in the future reaching back out to ourselves, so it was love. And love was actually the principle that was able to transcend time and space.
And the same is true of the film The Last Mimsy. The same is true. The Disney film, The Last Mimsy.
I know what you mean, but I've not seen that. Yes.
Oh my God, Jeff, watch that film and watch it with your children. Watch it with your children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's true. And when we read the Einstein letter, that stuck out to me specifically because that's what the whole movie Interstellar was really about.
Yeah.
That love is the force that transcends time and space. It really is. It's the one thing that it is our one hope. And that's why I say the coming together of those two principles. It's a love for what can be, and it's a love for what is married as one thing, right? It's not one or the other. And we always get stuck in one or the other. But if you get stuck in the upward, you despise the downward, right? And so you say, screw this, we're going up, right? And then if you get so married to this, you say, screw that, we're staying here, right? And then so you abandon hope, the upward calling. But then if you're too obsessed with this, you abandon what is, and then it's chaos, right? And so we always just have a war of one principle against the other instead of embodying them all. And before, it was really like, I just kind of prayed real quick and was like, I really want something that sort of encapsulates this. And this passage from the book of the Revelation just sort of came to me very quickly, fitting because we're talking about the end and it comes from the book of the Revelation or the Apocalypse. But it's Revelation 11:15 on to 19. It says, then the seventh angel, 7, that was significant. We started off with that. We started talking about Oppenheimer, the 7's there. Then the seventh angel blew his trumpet, and there were loud voices in heaven saying, the kingdom of this world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Messiah, or Christos, and he will reign forever and ever. Then the 24 elders who sit on their thrones before God fell on their faces and worshiped, singing, we give you thanks, Lord God Almighty, who are and who were, for you have taken your great power and begun to reign. The nations raged, but your wrath has come, and the time for judging the dead, for rewarding your servants, the prophets and saints, and all who fear your name, both small and great, and for destroying those who destroy the earth. For destroying, the time has come for destroying those who destroy the earth. And how does it manifest? Verse 19, Then God's temple in heaven was opened, and the ark of his covenant was seen within his temple. And there were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, an earthquake, and heavy hail. So, anyways, the seventh trumpet is blown, and it's announced it's time to reward the saints, and it's time to destroy those who destroy the earth. Now, I don't want to talk about the destruction of people, but I do want to talk about the destruction of that which destroys.
Can we talk about the destruction of Putin just for a moment?
Well, sometimes it has to be that too.
Okay. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
But
the manifestation of it was the opening of the temple in heaven and the revelation of the Ark of the Covenant, right? We all know the Ark of the Covenant, but the Ark of the Covenant in Orthodox thought is always equated with the Theotokos, which is the Mother of God or Mary. So again, the feminine principle. There's this call. It's time to reward the saints and destroy those who are destroying the earth.
Yes.
How does it manifest? Doors in the temple open. The Theotokos, the Mother of God, the divine feminine, is manifest. Now, I'm using this symbolically. I'm taking this out of his context to make a point in the present, okay? But I think we have been so hitched to the masculine principle of upward progress. We have absolutely divorced ourselves from the downward reality. We have despised the ground beneath our feet in our pursuit of the upward, the higher, whatever that is. It doesn't just have to be literally like, let's go to space and inseminate another planet, with the ejaculate of our ego. It could be, just the higher principle of let's advance, let's keep going forward, science, let's move forward, progress. And all the while we're destroying the thing that's sustaining us. Mm-hmm. And so the opening of the temple doors saying, you want the answer? You want to know how you destroy those who destroy the earth? Mm-hmm. Embrace the divine feminine, the Theotokos, the Mother of God, symbolically. Mm-hmm. There it is. You have to become that which is, you're aiming upward, but you're also...
It's why I chose the temple doors opening for the opening of Soul School.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
In our, in the,
yeah,
Soul School.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring Rupert in because I feel certain he has a unique perspective on this. Mm-hmm. And Rupert is not Rupert. I hope I'm not speaking out of Soul School when I say that you perceive yourself to be, if not an atheist, certainly agnostic, that you don't have an emotional connection to God per se, that Jeff was raised in, or that I perceive to be a higher power, as a generator, as a creator, as the great spirit, as whatever. So that's a difference between us. And, you bring a scientific perspective to this, but you also bring a spiritual perspective to this that is uniquely your own. And I'm very anxious for you to share it with our audience.
Thank you so much. And thank you both for having me here today. There is hope. Okay. There is hope. Why is there hope? Because the future is big. Okay. And if we can be a little less, not accusing anybody specifically, but if we can be a little less temporalist, if we can be a little less focused on the importance of our time, and we can get rid of that negative discrimination and see that there's a big picture here, and the big picture is forever afterwards. And we all die, and sure, there's going to be a lot of people die because of nuclear chaos, nuclear technology, and climate change more so. Mm-hmm. There is hope. And why is there hope? Because we can be working towards making the next chapter in human history better. I'm not a religious person, as you know, but basically we're coming to a flood, and our alien friends are offering us an ark. And they are being quite selective in who they're choosing. I'm not talking about a literal ark. I'm not talking about a literal spacecraft.
No.
But they are supporting people.
But yes, absolutely.
They're supporting people who are working towards making the next chapter in human history better than what we've got now. They don't need to come and wipe us all out. We're doing that for ourselves. They just need to sit back and wait and help those that are more aligned with their sense of morality. So there is hope for all of us to make it through to the other side and to thrive on the other side. But there are some pretty horrific realities that we need to face in order to be able to understand the problem enough to survive through to the other side and to make what happens on the other side less bad than it is presently looking. So I've talked about this before, but there are three main messages that our alien friends are giving to us. One is easy because it's just be nice to each other. And if we can be nice to each other, we kind of solve the other two problems, the other two messages that they're giving us. One of the messages is nuclear weapons are bad.
Mm-hmm. And just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Yeah.
But that was part of our race life lesson is, you know, we can. Now we have to decide, should we?
Yeah. And unfortunately, the present future is not looking so good. We can astrally project into the future. We can remote view. We can see what is in the future. We can essentially time travel. Spirits can time travel. Galactic friends are able to see what's going on in the future. They show us images of what's happening in the future. We see, we can also, with our own psychic abilities, have premonitions of the future. And there are missiles flying around, and there are nuclear bombs going off. It doesn't look nice. That's our present future. Now, I don't want to just upset people here in this session. I am going to give practical solutions, practical advice for practical solutions that we as individuals can do to help to change the future. We can change the future. Okay. And we can talk, I mean, let's just talk about nuclear right now. There are some politicians around the world, some parties around the world who are more diplomatic internationally than others. Mm-hmm. I don't need to name names. We all know in our own individual countries who is more likely to be keeping peace. Yeah. We vote people into power. If we vote people into power who are not very good with others, who are not diplomatic when talking to other countries, the leaders of other countries, then we are responsible for pushing ourselves towards a nuclear, I'm not sure if I want to say an all-out war, but nuclear bombs going off around the world. Okay, so we have power when we vote, and we have power to spread information, not disinformation, right, to others in a non-dictatorial way to help others to make the right choice when they vote. That's nuclear. And of course, the other message of the three messages that our alien friends are giving to us is take better care of our environment. Let's see, there are a couple of images I can throw up to just let people know where I'm going with this. And please be strong enough, anybody that's watching this, to understand that if humans are to change the future, humans need to change. And if we're not open to changing, then the future that's already there is going to happen and we're not going to make it. Here's one image that is going to show one of the two environmental stories that we need to look at now. I don't know if you can read through that, but we have a nice little alien coming down and giving the message, your dependence on oil will destroy your planet. And they're getting thrown back into their little UFO. Yeah. That's one of the messages, clearly. And here's another message. We're here to save you.
They take the cows and the because they're the intelligent creatures on the planet. Yeah, and we eat them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are two stories. Those are the two stories. And there's a lot of science, a lot of facts that I can tell you about each of the stories. One of the stories is one of the greenhouse gases that we're responsible for putting into the environment, and that's carbon dioxide, CO2. And the second story is a different story, but it's just as important, is the story of the second greenhouse gas, and that is methane,
Methane,
CH4. Methane or methane, yes, CH4. And I could talk for about 5 hours, 23 minutes on this subject.
Yep.
So you're going to have to stop me, or Bill is going to have to stop me, or somebody's going to have to stop me if I'm rambling on.
Oh, Bill will. That's why we have him. He's the magic man behind the curtain, with his atomic clock.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a science lesson, if that's okay.
Yes.
And at the end of this science lesson, I'm going to give people some hard, solid suggestions for what you can do after you've become enlightened by the gaining of knowledge, hopefully, to ascend, which is to change your spiritual, moral, and physical heights in order to change our future for the better. So we need to go back to the start of the Earth. The Earth formed about 4.6 billion years ago.
It's not 7,000 years ago, because there's people in Congress right now that think that it started 7,000 years ago and there was a real Garden of Eden, and they have positions of power.
Yes.
Okay. They don't want to talk about nuclear proliferation.
And fruit curses humanity. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Okay. Just saying, because,
Well, I'm going to give you an overview, and I'm not going to prove everything here, but I'm going to tell you that everything is provable. Everything is proved that I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
And so I'm going to, I'm going to start off by saying, if people get bored of listening to what I'm saying, or if people want to hear somebody else.
Don't worry. Don't even worry about it. Just keep going.
I'm going to say the names of 5 documentaries. First of all, your 2 movies that you talked about, Interstellar, The Last Mimsy, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
But I'm going to suggest 5 documentaries that everybody should watch in order to be fully enlightened. Not fully enlightened, but in this subject, partially
well on the way. Yeah.
An Inconvenient Truth.
Yes.
It's got real science in it.
It absolutely does.
A Life on This Planet. That is David Attenborough.
Yes, it is.
And he's got a very unique, very great perspective on the planet, and that is on Netflix. So you would need to subscribe for a month, but you need to watch it. Also, What the Health? The Game Changers. If people like James Cameron, as in from the who produced, directed The Terminator, Avatar, Titanic, Aliens, etc., that's one that he produced, a documentary he produced called The Game Changers. It's very eye-opening. People are going to like receiving the knowledge that's in it. And another one I recommend, just so you can see how a young teenage girl can really take on the world in solving this problem, and that is I Am Greta Thunberg.
Yep.
And as with everybody, I don't agree with all of her opinions, but she's factual in her interpretation of climate change, and I recommend that people watch that. So 4.6 billion years ago, we started off with a planet that looked like this. That large object there that we can see is the moon, because the moon started off close to us. It was extremely hot. It was 230 degrees Celsius. That's about 446 degrees Fahrenheit. The atmosphere was carbon dioxide. That's the natural state of this planet. It took 1 billion years of cooling and the evolution of photosynthetic organisms, a type of cyanobacteria, that took the carbon, started taking carbon dioxide out of the air, taking the carbon into their bodies and releasing the oxide part, the oxygen, into the atmosphere. It took that to happen before our oxygen rich atmosphere could be as it is today. And that process has continued throughout the present day. Here is an artist's impression of what it was like. Let's see, it was about 350 million years ago. These are tropical swamps that were abundant around the planet. And those plants, also being photosynthetic, were taking out the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, taking the carbon into their bodies. And when they die, they would go down, they would be pushed down into the ground, silt, sediments. This is all just sort of middle school science level stuff here. The carbon was pushed underneath the ground, and the oxygen that they released was building up in the atmosphere. And the oxygen has been building up and building up ever since. And these swamps that are around 350 million years ago, the plant matter, the carbon matter, that turned into coal under the ground. And something very similar was happening in the oceans. Ocean plankton was being sediments put on top of, and that was being pushed underneath the ground, underneath the oceans, huge amounts of ocean plankton, and that was turned into oil. And that plankton, the phytoplankton, was taking the carbon dioxide out of the air, replacing it with oxygen. And, about 200 million years ago, the first mammals evolved. About 400,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, or our species as we identify it today, evolved. And then everything changed about 250 years ago when the Industrial Revolution began. Humans started taking all of those fossil fuels, the coal and the oil that had taken 500 million years to take that carbon dioxide out of the air and put oxygen into the air. We're burning it, and we're throwing that carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere.
Billions of tons of it a day.
Yeah. And what is happening is we're literally changing the atmosphere back to how it was.
Right. Which was not life-sustaining for Homo sapiens.
Yeah. We're cutting down the plants.
Leveling the Brazilian rainforest so that we can raise cows to eat. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And this is basic science, like 7th grade science. Why does it seem like about 300 million people skipped that course? I don't mean to sound sardonic or just... I'm just disgusted. I'm so disgusted that we never seem to learn anything, or we can't do the 1 + 1 = 2, the whole cause and effect. This is the science of our planet, and our ozone layer is so thin and becoming so depleted that literally the penguins in Antarctica are going blind because they are exposed directly to the rays. There's a hole in the ozone layer over both poles. The one that was over the North Pole, when we were into about month 3 or 4, I believe, of the pandemic, when the whole globe shut down and everybody stopped riding around in their cars and we stopped polluting our environment, that hole closed. And yet there were scientists that said, oh, one has nothing to do with the other. I'm sorry, I'm not a scientist, but I know cause and effect when I see it.
Yeah. And you asked a question, why does it seem like so many people don't know that? Well, it's different in different places around the world, depending on the honesty of leaders, depending on the influence of the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah.
And in the US, there is a huge amount of disinformation and misinformation, proven disinformation and misinformation from the fossil fuel industry in order to miseducate people. And it feeds into the politics, because politics in the US is all about money.
Pretty
And
much everywhere around the world. I don't think that, we're the gold standard, or that we've got the market cornered. Did you like how I used both of those metaphors in one sentence? I'm not completely. Hold on, I have
well,
to mute myself for a minute. I have to ask Google something.
oh, go
All right.
ahead. I will carry on talking then. So we need to understand that this carbon dioxide that is released into the atmosphere, that acts as a blanket around the planet, holding in heat. We've got the sun shining sunlight and heating up the planet, and that heat radiates off the surface, and the carbon dioxide, the greenhouse gases, hold that heat inside. That's how it was at the start of the Earth. And that's what we're turning it back into. And so we can verify that relationship very, very clearly. If we look at this graph, we can see, going back about 800,000 years, we can see where the carbon dioxide concentration that is in orange is very, very closely matched to the temperature fluctuations over the last 800,000 years. There is a correlation there. And people will often say, well, there's natural fluctuations on this planet. There always have been. And that's right, there always have been. But look at what we've just done now on the far right-hand side. On the far right-hand side, you can see that the concentration of CO2 has pretty much doubled. It's now around 422 parts per million.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just do a quick eyeball estimate on, well, what's the corresponding temperature increase likely to be based on what we've already done, you're looking at about 10 degrees Celsius. You're looking at about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And I ask everybody, are you ready right now for the temperature on this planet to be 20 degrees hotter in the summertime?
Yeah.
What we're doing is pushing ourselves towards an extinction event.
Yes. An ELA. Yes.
So we need to wake up. We need to wake up now. And we need to put aside everything that we've learned before, everything that we think is important in our lives, and understand that this is more important. Because this is not just affecting us, this is affecting all species on the planet right now and for millions of years into the future. So, I have this vision of universal peace, universal love, universal happiness. If we're going to consider that to be a valid vision that we want to work towards, we need to be ready to change right now to become more than just a typical human. And if I carry on, and please do interrupt me again if you want to.
No, go
but
for it.
Here's another graph that shows the CO2 concentration at the top. The same graph, just zoomed in a bit. The middle line here is the red, and you can see it's very closely matching the temperature, the concentration of CO2. But then we've got a third graph here, and that's the sea level, because when you turn up the temperature,
Mm-hmm.
the ice melts, and that's why floods are happening more than they were before. That's why storms are increasing in severity.
The saturation point of the air molecules has virtually doubled. I mean, we're in the middle of flooding rains. We're in like day 3, day 4. We got a little respite today, but it's going to start raining tomorrow morning and rain right through to Sunday. And it's coming right out of the Gulf of Mexico and this whole strip coming up into Atlanta, where we've just received 5 to 8 inches of rain, is going to get another 5 to 8 inches of rain within a 48-hour period.
Yeah.
Look at San Diego. Look what's and also, I don't know what people are thinking, but a lot of those cars have gasoline in them, and there's household chemicals. There's 85,000 different chemicals that we've been using since the turn of the mid 20th century. 85,000 chemicals that we have put into our environment and that we are ingesting into our bodies on a day-to-day basis. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
you. Go ahead.
please do.
Makes me crazy. I'm a little crazy on that subject.
And that's a sign that you're an empathic person, and being an empathic person is a good thing because you care. That's why you're getting crazy. It's for anybody out there that's feeling a bit frustrated by the situation, it's because you're a good person and you care. And the trick, I suggest, is to feel that empathy for others, to let yourself get a bit upset or crazy, but then to turn that into doing something constructive about the situation.
I burn. I have told you, I burn my fury, my rage as jet fuel. Yeah. And my rage does not pollute the environment.
And what you're doing here with this session today, this is extraordinary. You're reaching so many people, and this has the potential to be incredibly constructive if people will really just listen to us a little bit. So a few more graphs. These are all things that you can look up. This is science. You can look it up. Science.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting more depressed with each one. I told you that, hours ago in text. So go ahead.
This is the Keeling curve, and it shows, yes, carbon dioxide emissions are going up. Human-caused carbon dioxide emissions. And throughout this graph, we have known about this issue. Politicians have known about this issue. We've known about this issue for 50 or 60 years at least, and it's still accelerating.
Yeah.
It's not decelerating, it's accelerating. And the politicians who are discussing this in their yearly meetings, where the big international COP meetings, well, guess what? This last COP meeting was led by the head of an oil company. Yeah. And he stood up and said that he didn't think that there was any real science saying that we really have any kind of a problem.
Does he have kids? Did anybody ask the son of a bitch if he has children or grandchildren that won't be able to breathe the fucking air in 50 years? Sorry. That was just a little burst that kicked me from Mach 1 to Mach 2.
That's okay. So we need to vote in politicians that care about this subject. We do not need to
know about it, not just care about it, but actually are educated about it.
Yep. And here are the facts. The temperature has already increased just since we started burning all of this fuel a couple of 100 years ago. Well, based on this graph, it looks to me like over a 2-degree Fahrenheit increase in temperature.
Yeah, but before that, we killed all the whales.
Yeah.
Well, we're too stupid to live. We really are. Human beings are too stupid to live. I mean, I think it's just an accident of evolution that we're still here, honest to God, or that we really like procreating more than just about anything. Maybe eating, but, other than that, making the babies. Yeah. I'm so glad I didn't have children. Oh, my God. I'm so glad I didn't have children. I would not want to leave this world or this responsibility to them. I wouldn't. Every time I come across a kid, who's like all interested in ghosts and spirits and stuff, I'm like, okay, excuse me, you need to pay very close attention to me. You are a starseed. You were born specifically to help save the world. No pressure. Study everything that you can possibly study, absorb, realize, make it rational, and then do your good work on this planet, or don't bother having children of your own. And sometimes their parents look at me like, please don't scare my child. but I'm not trying to scare them. I'm trying to educate them.
Yeah.
Is that wrong? Well, I don't care if it's wrong or not. I don't give a shit. Say it anyway. But, you know, I think I even did that to your kids, Jeff. Those poor kids. Are they still traumatized? Probably. I was looking for my favorite quote by Edgar Mitchell. It's not that I'm not listening, but I got a really great quote I want to end, quotation I want to end the show on tonight when we end. So continue, my darlings.
So there's different ways of showing this increase in temperature. We've been measuring it. And here's a nice graphic, which I can put up, which shows year by year by year, the temperature increase. And as these lines swirl around, that's each swirl around is a year. And as we move into 100 years ago and in towards where people in our audience may be being born, the further outwards that these swirls are going shows the increasing temperature, average temperature of our planet. And this is about the time here where we know this is true. We know that we have a problem. And what are we doing about it? Nothing. We're accelerating the temperature increase because there are a few people getting very, very rich and powerful because of this. And if we now turn this image on its side, you can see that there is an acceleration of increasing temperature now. This is real science. None of this is disputed by any scientists. So this is the situation we're facing. Now, I think what I'm going to do is, because I've said that there are two stories involved here when it comes to climate change, let's talk about a few solutions to what we can do about the carbon dioxide emissions, to give ourselves a better end to this story.
Could I just interject one thing? Uno thing that I know that you know, and I don't know if you're going to cover it, but are you aware that if you plant one stalk of bamboo in your yard and you have 40 trees in your yard like we do here on our couple of acres, we have a bamboo forest behind us. One stalk of bamboo will not only gobble up more CO2 than any other tree in your yard, it will also produce more oxygen than those 40 trees combined. One. Everybody needs to plant bamboo.
I want to jump in before Rupert gets to maybe the bright side of this. I studied weather since at an early age. I wanted to become a meteorologist.
Me too.
I can tell you, and I've got the data ready to share on the screen. First of all, the Hudson Valley, where I live, has become the new tornado alley.
Yeah.
In the last 8 years, it's become more predominant when these fronts come in from Canada, the cold fronts, with the warm air that rushes up from the north. You get that circulation in the atmosphere. And I can go to a whole thing with weather. Now, people might say, oh, it's snowing in Minnesota. It's supposed to, because you're in the snow belt. That's where the jet stream comes down from Canada. But if you notice, the jet stream is dipping very far south. It bends back up, but it's staying to the west of the East Coast, where we're getting that warmer flush of air, meaning our winters are milder. Now, I want to share my screen quickly because I want to show you, like Rupert has been doing, numbers, because data is very important because it's science. And that's important. So let's look at, this is this year so far, January, 40s. Yeah, we had that cold spell with the Arctic blast with the 20s.
It was 80 in Washington today.
But let's look at 2023. Now, the average temperature in January here is 37 and 35 toward the end of the month. Look at last year, 40s, 50s. There's hardly any 20s. There's no teens. There's none of that. Now, let's go back to 2015. Look at this, 30s, teens, and 20s. As you progress up this chart, you'll see it slowly, more 30s, more 40s, and you keep going year to year. you see more of it, 50s, 40s.
But it's not slowly. It's like it's happening literally overnight. That is the climate. That's where the word climate crisis comes from. Because this is happening within a decade.
Yes.
Within just the last decade.
Yes. And that's what that indicates. You could see the averages are above normal. I mean, if of course you take the month, the high numbers, the low numbers, you add them up and you come up with a median number. The median number is way above average. New York City hasn't seen a snowfall amount in like 700 days or over 2 inches. They average 20 something plus. Here we average 30 something plus. We haven't seen that in years.
Yeah.
So, and again, with the summertime, with these storms that come through these fronts, the weather is more extreme, whether it's a drought, whether it's flooding, whether it's cold. But if you look at it at a global level, that's what we need to see, the global level. Like Rupert put that model up, it is increasing. The ice is melting. Now, people might say, oh, but they said it was going to flood in Manhattan in 2020. Well, you know what?
It did.
Give it time. When I'm going to tell you this,
you want to go see the southern tip of Florida?
I was just going to mention that.
You better go.
Do you know that they're buying land inland away from the coastline
to move the mansions?
To the poor people that live in those areas are selling their homes because that's going to be the next waterfront.
Yeah.
When that becomes flooded in Miami, they know, like Rupert, all of you are saying, they already know this is going to come in the decades to come. They are already preparing for it.
Within the next decade. Just what fell off of halfway through 2023, a whole slab of Greenland just broke off and moved out into the ocean. And then the largest iceberg that's ever been recorded on the planet has broken away from Antarctica, and between the two of them melting, and that's already moved up into the shipping lanes, up into the warmer waters. It's so easy. Just Google it. You can see what the ocean is doing to this massive, it's going to raise sea level by 3 to 5 feet within the next decade across the globe. So kiss Charleston goodbye, kiss New Orleans goodbye, kiss.
Oh, they're already under the water.
There won't be Kill Devil Hills off all the islands, Sea Island, and all of these islands are going to just be decimated. I lost my fucking house last year. I lost my home to a thunderstorm. It wasn't a hurricane. It wasn't a tropical storm. It was a storm that landed over Lake Apopka, and it dropped 12 inches of water in 90 minutes. And half my house was under 6 inches of water.
One more thing before I bail out and let Rupert continue doing.
So to speak, bail out.
Good news. Think about the methane that's trapped underneath the ice. Think about the drilling they're doing in the oceans and
the microbes. Just think about the microbes. Think about what's going into the salt water that we are, and they're like, well, we'll just open up a whole bunch of desalination plants and we'll just fill Lake Mead with the water once we take all the salt out of it. That's not a solution. That's not. But I know, Rupert, I saw some of your stuff. We have a little bit of time left, and I really want you to get to all the data. Sorry, Bill, I don't mean to kick you off the screen. You're brilliant. You're beautiful, but I don't want to miss this because this is too important.
Thank you. And thank you, both of you, for contributing to this discussion, because everything you're saying is true and everything is connected. Pretty much all of the problems that we're facing, the pandemic even, all of our problems are being caused by some of the same root sources, by some of our same behaviors. And everything is connected. And if we can see that, then we can apply love, wisdom, in order to solve almost all of our problems. Everything gets solved. But if we're talking about just carbon dioxide, we need we need to stop burning fossil fuels. We need to not aim to
Stop.
phase them out in
No.
50 years.
Stop.
We need to stop now. In order to do that, there's a few things. But basically, as individuals, we need to vote. I've said it before, but we need to vote for people who get how important this is.
Yeah.
We need to just stop opening coal mines, to stop drilling, and we need to accept that we might need to change, even go through some hard changes in order to transition quickly into renewable ways of producing energy. We have the technology. We've had the technology for over 100 years. It's simple. It's simple to build a generator.
Nikola Tesla gave us free electricity for the whole entire planet. And Westinghouse stole all of his material and made sure that he died a pauper in a flea-infested hovel in New York City. You know, that's your problem, Rupert. That's greed and avarice and these people thinking somehow that they can take it with them. And it's all about the almighty dollar instead of, and this persists. You know, I mean, look at the last administration. Who got put in charge of the State Department, the CEO of an oil executive? Tillerson, I think his name was. I can't remember. I like to try to forget all of that. But, you know, Rex Tillerson, you know, let's just go make friends. And it doesn't matter what the Saudis do in terms of their human rights violations, as long as they keep the pumps pumping. You know, and the fact is now we're generating more oil and gas than any other place in the world. And we're supposed to be on the right track, you know, but everybody's like, oh, you know what? If you don't bring the price of gasoline down, we're just going to vote you out. You know, you're just being too farsighted, and we need short-sighted, and we need to pay 30 cents a gallon less for a gasoline. And it's that kind of ignorance, that kind of stupidity, that kind of you don't get it that I feel hopeless about.
Yeah.
And so I love it when you give me just those few breadcrumbs of it's okay, Annie, it's okay. It's going to be okay if we make it okay. You know, I appreciate it. So go ahead with your graphs and your data and your science.
You're welcome. Now, when we pay our taxpayers, when we pay our tax money, a lot of that money goes to the fossil fuel industries.
A lot. We subsidize the richest organizations and corporations in the world.
Yeah. We need to take those subsidies. We need to move them across to wind power, to solar power, which are clean, they work, they can help. And there's lots of other green energy sources out there as well. We can, as individuals, try to use our vehicles less, as much as is practically possible. If you're going to drive to the store, instead of going every day to get a few items, go once a week or once every 2 weeks and just stock up. Just simple things like that might help. Turn off electrical appliances when you're not using them. If you have all of our appliances often are on standby.
Yeah, vampire appliances. They're sucking juice even if you're not using them. Yeah.
Put them on a power strip. Turn off the power strip before you go to sleep. Turn off lights. If it's a little cold, put more clothes on instead of turning the heating on. If it's a little too hot, remove layers instead of putting the air conditioning on.
Oh, now you're talking about sexy stuff again, just like Jeff. Now stop that. You guys, what is it with you guys?
I try very hard not to.
I know.
Go in that direction. And as you were saying, we need to restore, we need to plant trees. We need to restore areas of wildlife. We need to see wildlife not as just a plate from which we can pillage and eat it and feast on as much as we want to. We need to take care of it. Its value to us as diversity and being in existence in a healthy way is more valuable to us than just stripping it of all its resources and destroying it. This, I've talked about the first story, and we only have a few minutes to talk about the second story. I'm going to do a very fast track second story, because the second greenhouse gas is methane. If I were to put up a chart here that shows, no, that's the wrong chart. This is the chart I wanted to show you. Greenhouse gas emissions. Now, carbon dioxide is 80%. Methane is only 10% of the amount of gases that we're releasing. And people might therefore think, well, methane isn't so much of a problem. But methane is 84 times stronger at warming than carbon dioxide is. That means that on a day-to-day basis, the biggest contribution to climate change that we make as a species is methane. And we can see that around the Industrial Revolution, there it goes, methane goes up. So where does this methane come from? What are the causes of methane? Well, here's a graph that is very hard to understand. This is an official graph from the CDC, I think. No, the Environmental Protection Agency. But what it's basically saying is the fossil fuel industry is contributing about 30% of the total emissions of methane, 37% in total. The largest emitter, which you can't really tell from looking at that graph unless you know science, is the meat and the dairy industry, which is contributing 38% of the total emissions. Instead of saying meat, it says enteric fermentation. And also manure management. They separate them out so that it's less obvious what's going on. But the simple truth of the matter is, if we as individuals want to make the largest change that we personally can make to our contributions to global warming, it's to eat less meat and less dairy. And then a lot of people are going to say, well, how can we do that? Because we need the protein, we need the calcium, we need this, we need that. But we have been lied to by the meat and the dairy industry in the same way we've been lied to by the fossil fuel industry. If you go to the CDC website and you look up the 10 different most common ways for human beings to die, about 7 of them are because we eat meat and dairy. Number 1, cardiovascular disease, caused by the cholesterol that is in all meat products, all dairy products, clogs us up on the inside, causes us heart attacks. That's the number 1 way people die in this country and around the world, I think. We don't need to. If you stop eating meat, you stop taking in dietary cholesterol. You can get rid of that way of dying in your life straight away. And there are some very tasty meat options. You don't have to sacrifice taste. Strokes. Now, strokes are caused by different things, but one of the things that strokes are caused by is cholesterol in the blood vessels of your brain. Same thing. You can get rid of most of our stroke susceptibility. Cancer. People don't realize this, but a lot of people don't realize it, but the World Health Organization has classed meats as carcinogens. They cause cancer. Especially
cancer of the bowel, cancer of the, not only does it take an incredible strain on your heart and all your vital organs because it's so much more difficult to digest, but it also has a tendency to linger and linger in the lower intestines. And what have we got? An explosion of, a proliferation of cancer. Cancer. In the bowels.
Every form of cancer has gone like this in correlation to, over since the Second World War, our consumption of meat and dairy. We do not need the protein in meat. Where do those animals that have that protein, where do they get their protein from? Plants. Look at the nutritional information on all food packets. You will see that you can have a delicious plant-based diet with there's protein in all plants. Look at milk and dairy. other forms of cancer are caused by especially milk and dairy. The casein, which is in dairy products, that turns on cancer cells. You can many scientific studies have shown you drink it or eat it, it turns the cancer cells on, and they reproduce. You stop eating it, drinking it, consuming it, the cancer cells turn off. We don't need to have this huge cancer epidemic. I could go on, diabetes, etc. Most of the reasons why people are dying and getting ill in this country is meat and dairy. We didn't even evolve to be able to digest dairy until about 2,000 years ago. We don't need, as a human species, to be drinking the milk of other organisms through our adulthood.
No,
It's a money thing.
About 140 years ago, hardly anybody on the planet had access to sugar. And since it became something that was grown and refined and highly processed and then dispersed among the entire population, rates of diabetes have gone through the roof. Pancreatic cancer, you eat enough sugar, your pancreas is going to say, you don't need me anymore. I'm going to shut down and go to sleep here. And before you know it, within 5 to 6 months, it's developed cancerous tumors, and then you are dead. There's no cure for pancreatic cancer. We could, and you and I have done so much work together in terms of healing ourselves, and yes, a lot of that is spiritual work. And, and Jeff and I have done a lot of shows about this too, about our ability to heal ourselves. But wouldn't it help if we start, in the most logical place? What are we putting into our bodies, and how is our body reacting to it? And in the human evolution of this body, how new is what we have introduced into a body that was never intended to be able to process refined sugar, that was never built to process dairy products and meat products, when you can go eat a fistful of peanuts and get as much protein as you would get from a 12-ounce steak. A palm full of peanuts will give you enough protein that you could just, kick the steak goodbye. Yep. Okay, let's look at this.
That's basically saying what you're saying. You can get each of these foods here for the same amount of protein. These bars show how much carbon emission is produced.
Mm-hmm.
And if legumes, I think peanuts may be legumes at the bottom, 0.25 compared to typical meat, 62. That is a factor of what? 240 difference. That means basically a plate with any kind of meat on it is going to have at least 70, probably up to about 200 often, times more of a negative impact on our environment than if you have food without it. Don't despair, everybody. I am here to help you find nice plant-based options if you want.
Yes, and anybody, you've been a vegan for forever. So, anybody that's watching this and is freaking out a little bit, like, what can I do to, take care of my body? Get in touch with Rupert. He's easy to find. And, and also I would recommend people watching your show too. Before we go, talk about your show on KGRA, my dear.
Yeah, thank you. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, my show is Galactic Wisdom. And I am trying to use it, as you are, Andrea, to help to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And with knowledge comes power to help everybody.
Okay, I want to swear one more time before that mean producer Bill makes us leave, with his atomic quantum clock that's wrong. Okay, he says we have 5 minutes. All right, this is my favorite. I had the distinct privilege and pleasure of meeting Edgar Mitchell. And this is my favorite quotation of his many that is beautiful, and it's just one of my very favorites. And he was talking about going off planet and, you know, making a buzz around the moon. And he said, being off planet, you develop an instant global consciousness, a people orientation, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, and a compulsion to do something about it. From out there on the moon, international politics looks so petty. You want to grab a politician by the scruff of the neck and drag him 250,000 miles out and say, "Look at that, you son of a bitch." Best quote that man ever wrote. I would like to take his place and do the dragging and pick the politicians that I would like to take, like a schoolmarm with a little brat by the earlobe, and take them into a room and sit them down and tie them to a chair and fill their mind with the truth of our existence. And I think that's called child abuse, and I'd have to go to jail for it. And that sucks. That sucks. But it's also probably a good thing I didn't have kids, because if they did not do what I told them, then, you know, there'd be an issue. That said, Jeff, are you still there? Or are you frozen? Jeff looks frozen to me. Jeff looks frozen to me.
Oh, he does. Yes.
He does. That's a nice picture of him. It is. But Jeff is frozen, and I don't think he knows. But anyway, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Rupert. Thank you to all of our listeners. I'm sorry I swear so much, but I'm so pissed. Oh God, I'm just so pissed about everything.
Yep.
And I'm trying to look up and be happy. I'm trying to be hopeful. And that's why we brought this together tonight, brought each other together in our Trinity, in our shape of a pyramid, the three of us, to try to enlighten the world and awaken the world, because nobody is going to save us from ourselves. It's our responsibility. It's our obligation. And if we are mature, thinking, feeling, organic beings, we have no choice but to say yes. And so in that respect, we'll say class dismissed for Soul School and A World Awakening, and end it with the most hopeful thing that I can say to anyone: be the light you seek. Love you all. Good night.